Hey everyone, James and Mitchell here, and I'm about to do another Lenormand reading, and yes, it's going to be on another couple from a soap opera. This one, actually, I have to give credit where credit is due. I didn't even know about the soap opera until I came across it on YouTube, so I'm going to give credit where credit is due. It's from a person who posts as Miss Finlandia, because the show in question takes place in Finland. It's a Finnish soap opera, the only one that they have. And it translates to Secret Lives. Don't ask me to say it in Finnish, because my Finnish is extremely rusty. But it's called Secret Lives. And the couple in question is two young men named Elias Vikstedt and Lari Väänänen. And so the story is about their relationship. And it's taken YouTube by storm. And people now call the couple Larias, which is a combination of Larry and Elias. Larias, and people are very vocal about their love for this couple and how they want to see them together. But now here's the thing. In the story, Elias has left Helsinki for Brussels, and Larry is embarking on a new relationship. So those of us who are really rooting for the couple to be back together, I'm one of them, now wonders, what are they going to do now? So I decided, because I am in love with this couple, that I wanted to take a peek at the cards to see where their relationship is going. Yes, I understand Elias is gone. Yes, I understand he left for Brussels. But at some point, he may decide he wants to come back. Will they bring him back? How will they bring him back? And how will that shake up things with Larry and his new partner? So I decided I want to take a sneak peek at the cards, and so the next segment, just like in my previous two, when I did one on Days of Our Lives in General Hospital, is going to show you the deck that I'm going to be using, the players in the game, the cards that are going to represent Elias and Larry, and then we're going to move on to the reading itself. So stay tuned. Okay, so once again, like I did with my reading on Will Horton and Sonny Kyriakis from Days of Our Lives, the deck I'm going to be using for this reading is the Malpertuis Lenormand, or Malpertuis. I learned there's two ways to say it. It's French, and so cartomancy, which I'm doing now, originated in France. So that's the reason for the French name. So, but this is the deck. And the reason why I like this deck so much is that it has two men cards and two women cards for same-sex readings. So in this particular case, I'm going to allow the man on the left, the man with the top hat, to represent Elias, and the man on the right to represent Larry. So these are going to be the players in the game, because Lenormand has been traditionally known as a game of hope. So these are the players in the game, and we're going to be looking at our next segment, when I actually do the reading, to see where these cards show up and when they show up. You know, in the two instances where I've done other readings based on soap opera characters, in one we only had one character show up, in the other neither character showed up. So we'll be looking to see when and where these particular cards show up in the reading, because that will bear some significance. So now let's move on to the reading itself. Okay, and here we have our grand tableau. And this is one variation. There are two types of grand tableaus. This is the 8x4 plus 4, because there's 4 rows of 8 cards. And then down here at the bottom, we have 4 more additional cards, because there's 36 cards in the deck. So this type of layout uses the entire deck of cards. Okay, and if you've followed my previous videos where I've done this type of reading focusing on couples from soap operas, you know that we start with the first card, because the first card tells us what the jumping off point of the story is. So the first card here for Elias and Larry is the cross. And so whenever the cross appears, it suggests that this is a difficult situation, that it's reached a critical stage or a crisis point. There's been lots of burdens, lots of grief and suffering, and so This card is an acknowledgement of where they're at right now or what the nature of the relationship has been like. And I can attest from the few videos that I've watched, it has been very difficult. It has been full of burdens and challenges. This card also talks about this is a testing relationship, so each person in the relationship is being tested. Now, that's the traditional meaning of the card. I tend to look at the cross as a spiritual symbol, so the spiritual aspect of it could suggest that this is a karmic relationship, that Elias and Lari were meant to be in each other's lives. This was a relationship that was meant to happen. Regardless of how it turns out, they were in each other's lives for a reason. So that's my take on the spiritual side of the cross. So now the cross is card number 36. So then what we do next is we go to the card in the last position of the layout, which is here. This is card 36, and we'll take a look at what that card is. Okay, so now this card is the moon. So whenever the moon comes up, it talks about recognition. So here in the position, here where this is representative of the House of the Cross, this card would suggest that each party has recognized, going with the moon, how difficult and a burden that the relationship has been. And that's the House of the Cross. So that's my take on the moon. Now, the other thing about the moon card that I always point out is the inset. The inset here is the Eight of Hearts. And so whenever the Eight of Hearts is a card that is part of the reading, it usually indicates an emotional decision being made, a change of heart kind of thing. So one or the other, either Elias or Lari at some point has made an emotional decision either to stay in a relationship and resume it or end it and walk away only to come back. So that kind of thing. But this card is a recognition of feelings and emotions. But here in this position, it's a recognition of how difficult the relationship has been. So that card is number 32. So then we go to the card in the 32nd position because that's the next part of the story. So this is card number 32. So we're going to turn it over. And this is the fox. Okay, so now whenever the fox comes up, it usually represents something being wrong or something being a mistake. So sometimes in the course of Elias and Lari's relationship, each one has thought when they were together that the relationship was a mistake, and when they were apart, they thought that was a mistake. So I'm going with that. The other thing about the fox is it represents doing something undercover. And so now, in this relationship, Elias is the partner who has been out. When he and Lari come into each other's lives, he is out, Lari's in the closet. So for me, the fox represents the times where they've had to be undercover, if you will, about the relationship. Lari was always big on, if they were going to be together, they had to be together in secret, like nobody could know about it. And so part of the difficulty, if you will, going back to the cross, with that is when one party's out and one party's in the closet, the dynamic can be where the person who's out feels like they're being pulled back into the closet, and the person who's in the closet feels like the other person is trying to pull them out. So they have that, and that could cause a lot of grief and suffering, especially when the person who's still in the closet is not ready to come out and maybe feeling pressured. And what happens is that both parties wind up resenting the other one. So, but going back to the fox here, I think the biggest thing I would say with this is about the aspect of them being undercover, like nobody can know about their relationship. But the show is also called Secret Lives, so there's lots of things going on that is done in secrecy. So that's the fox. Okay, then that's card number 14. So then we're going to look for the card in the 14th position. This is the next card in the storyline. So this is 16, going over 1, 2, this is 14. And so now this is the lilies. So now the lilies is a card that represents maturity. It represents protection. So going with the being in the house of the fox, again, we're going to be undercover because one party feels like they need to protect themselves. And that is Lari, because he was always concerned about what everybody around him would think, what his father would think. And the interesting thing about this card is that it can represent an older man, and it's a family card. So really keeping it undercover because he was really concerned about what his father would think about their relationship, because his father in the show is characterized as being a homophobe. So that's my take on the lilies, but it's also about maturity. So it's about, like, you know, something that is maturing. So on some level, the relationship matures both of them in different ways. So that's the lilies. Now the lilies is card number 30. So this was 32 here, the fox. So we're going to go over to the card in the 30th position. And this is the bouquet. So now the bouquet represents something that's surprise, something that's wonderful. It's usually, the bouquet is about a token of appreciation. So what I want to suggest here, because this card can represent gifts as well, it's like if each party looked at the other person as being a gift in their lives, you know, that would be a wonderful thing, and that would help them appreciate the other person. The other thing about this, since it's in the house of the lilies, would be, again, the idea, if we want to look at the lilies as being Larry's father, Ilka, then this card would suggest Ilka would really be surprised to find out that his son is gay. So that's the bouquet. So the bouquet is card number 9. So we're going to go to the card in the 9th position now, and that is the Tower. Okay, so now when the Tower comes up, it represents tradition. It represents doing something official. It represents rules, regulations. It can represent an authority, somebody who's at the top. So again, I'm looking at this, going with this being in the house of bouquet, and this is the house of surprises, that father would be surprised. And also too, this card can be a representative of seclusion or solitude or isolation. So it could be that Larry feels really isolated because nobody really understands his experience, even though he's in a relationship with Elias, and Elias has been down that road. It's different for Larry, because I believe that for every person who is in the closet and struggling with that, about when to come out, how to come out, that kind of thing, you know, it's an individual process. So that, I think that represents the Tower, because the Tower represents something solitary. But it can also represent separation. But I'm looking at more like the traditional aspect, and in terms of his father, you know, what the traditional idea of a relationship is, you know, that kind of thing. So that's the Tower. That's card number 19. So then we have 16 over here. So we're going to go 17, 18, 19. And this is the mice. Okay, so whenever the mice comes up, this is a challenging card. Whenever the mice comes up, it represents loss, something being taken. So the idea here with the Tower being something traditional, something official, it could represent stress about that. So I would suggest that, you know, in the efforts that Elias and Larry are working to keep their relationship undercover, this is about the stress of that and that kind of thing. So this, again, going with the cross being something very burdensome and very difficult, this card says on some level for each party there's a certain amount of stress involved in that. So that's the mice. That's card number 23. So we go 8, 16, 24. 23 is here. And here we have the house. Okay, so now the house is all about personal life, family life, you know, being comfortable. The house can be a symbol of, like, the skin you're in. So again, there's a lot of stress about a person feeling like they have to become comfortable with who they are and who they're becoming. Now again, like the lilies, this has an inset of a king. So this is the King of Hearts, and so it can represent the matriarch, not the matriarch, the patriarch of the family. So again, we have 2 cards here that can represent dual aspects of Larry's father. Now, incidentally, Elias's father is great. You know, Sebastian, his father, is okay with him being gay, okay with him being involved, is very supportive, very loving. So I would see the lilies as being Larry's father, and then possibly the house as being Elias's father, Sebastian. But the other thing I want to say about it, and I think more in terms of either Larry in particular, is about his learning to become comfortable with who he is, and that's the house. Okay, so now the house is number 4. So the 4th card here in the story is, okay, we have one of our man cards, and this is the card that I've chosen to represent Elias. So what I said all about Sebastian is true here, because this card here representing Elias follows that card. So again, this is about Elias's personal life, you know, his family. He's got a great family, everybody supportive, everybody knows, you know, no disagreement, no upset about it at all. So this is Elias. So Elias is the one in the relationship who's very comfortable with who he is. Okay? So now, that card is number 28. And so now the 28th card here in the spread is, this is 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Okay, now this is the key. So now since I'm asking about the idea of their relationship with the hopes that they're going to get back together at some point, this card is always a yes card. Whenever the key here comes up, it represents yes, it represents something important, something vital, something certain. It represents an answer or solution to the problem, but it also represents a discovery. And so since it's in the house of the man, because Elias was the man, so this is the house of the man, it could represent that the man discovers something. The man uncovers some truth. The man finds an answer or solution. So that's the key. But I'm also going to suggest too that, again, going back with the cross and the idea like their relationship is karmic, this card would say yes, they were meant to be together. Yes, from a spiritual standpoint, yes, almost like they were soulmates kind of thing, if you subscribe to that idea. But that's what the key is all about. So now the key is number 33. So this is 32, 33 is here. Okay, so now here we have the child card. So now the child card represents something new. So again, so here in the house of the key could just represent a new discovery, a new answer, a new solution, that kind of thing. But it always represents something new. So that's the child. But I also say for the child, it represents potential for the future and also like a learning stage of development. So there could be something, a discovery or something that's uncovered that's learned. So going with this is a discovery, then it's something that's learned or found out. So that's the child. Now the child is number 13. So we have 14 was here, so 1 over is 13. And here we have the other man card, so this is Lari's card. So it's connected to Lari in some way. So what I will say here in the house of the child, out of the two of them, I would say that Lari is in a new stage of development. It's in a new stage of development in terms of who he is and who he's becoming, like I said before. But also, too, it could represent Lari being somewhat immature, because a child card can represent immaturity. So I find it very interesting that the lilies, which is maturity, would be next to Lari's card, is kind of reinforcing the idea that Lari needs to become more mature, and this is going to be a learning experience. The lilies in this case is wisdom gained through experience. So, and it's also traditionally known as a sex card. So I tend to see it in questions like this. It's a matter of becoming okay with your sexual orientation. So that's how I look at it. The idea with the lilies is that it would be saying for Lari is overcoming the idea like there's something wrong with his being gay. And so, you know, coming to terms with that. So I find it very interesting that in this layout, we actually have both cards, because in previous layouts where I've done the Will, Horton, Sonny Kyriakis, we had Will show up and Sonny didn't show up. And then when I did the General Hospital one, neither Elizabeth or Jason's cards showed up. And here we have both players in the game show up. And they're really close to one another. Now the funny thing about it is that both the men cards are number 28. So 28 would bring us right back to the key. So actually Lari's card is actually the end of the story. So it doesn't really say, you know, if they're going to end up together. For me, since the key is here, it would suggest yes. Even though the storyline now is that Elias has left for Brussels to be with his mom, and Lari actually has moved on to a new relationship. And it's very interesting that, again, the lilies here in this case is his new relationship is with a man named Cal, or Calais, and Calais is a much older man. On the show, Lari has turned 18, so he's legal. And Callie is supposedly like 15 years his senior. Oh, I just realized with the key, key is number 33, and so that would make Callie, in terms of storyline, he's 33. So, but this represents, again, an older man, so I find it very interesting that they're next to each other, because now this represents his new relationship, and Elias and Lari, even though they're connected, they're close, their cards are close, it is kind of validating or reinforcing his new relationship with Callie. So sometimes what I do is I look to see, since these two cards are so close to each other, what the opposite cards are that are connecting them. So here we have the letter. So in terms of Lari and Elias, there is some form of message or correspondence that could take place, especially now that Elias is gone. Elias left because he felt like he needed to be on his own, away from everyone. He was also involved with a guy named Miska, and supposedly was going to get married to Miska. But then when he realized he was still in love with Lari, he broke off his engagement to Miska and left for Brussels, and said that he needed to be by himself. So at some point, Lari could receive some correspondence from Elias, because that's what the letter is. The letter is about news, information, something written, some sort of paperwork, a document, but it represents correspondence. So I'll be on the lookout to see if they write that into the show somehow, that they get some sort of correspondence. So now on the other side between them is the mountain. Okay, so now when the mountain card comes up, it represents something that's a block, something that's a challenge, something that's an obstacle, something that takes a long time to overcome. So if they are going to get together, and I really hope they are, I'm biased here, that if they do, it will take a long time to for that to happen, because the mountain is also about setbacks and delays. So there could be some setbacks or delays, but also too, since it's connected to Elias right here, he went off to a remote location, because the mountain can represent going off alone and being remote. So again, to kind of create some space or some distance, to kind of pull himself together and understand what he wants for himself. So, but these were not actually part of this. I just wanted to see what they were. So, like I said, this is the storyline spread for Elias and Lari from the show Secret Lives, and I'll be keeping you updated to see how things develop. But right now, as it stands, it looks like they're going to be focusing, the show anyway, they're going to be focusing on Lari's new relationship while Elias is gone. So I hope you enjoyed that, and stay tuned for further updates. Take care.